Hello, I'm going to be doing this sketch of a notepad on a desk with a pencil and some crumpled paper. The idea is to show you how you can create a relatively simple but realistic sketch, and I'm mostly going to be talking about light source and shadows, and I'm also going to be showing you how I draw these pieces of crumpled paper. I'm going to start out with a sketch, which, as usual, I'm doing with a graphite pencil. The first thing you need to decide on is composition, so I initially moved the notepad around a little bit, and the pencil is going to be there, and I just made some sketches of where roughly the crumpled paper will be. And those are the white spaces that I'm going to reserve. So just a few rough shapes where the crumpled paper will be. And now I'm using my charcoal pencil to shade around it, because I want to create a background that will serve as a sort of a mid-tone, because there will be lighter and darker areas in this sketch as well. I want the lighter areas, the paper and the notepad, to stand out. That's why I need this background. And later I'm going to add a little bit of texture to the background to make it look like the surface of a desk, a wooden desk. So right now I'm shading that and I'm blending it with a blending stump and the brush. The edges of the white spaces that I left are looking a little bit blurry now, so I'm gonna have to clean them up a little bit later, because I'm going to need clean edge there. And now I'm drawing these holes in the notepad, and I'm also going to be drawing the coil that holds it together, or these rings that hold it together. I'm doing this with a black colored pencil because I need finer lines and a little bit more precision. So like I said, what I'm doing here is a relatively simple illustration, and it's nothing like a realism challenge or anything like that. It's going to be a sketch, and I will show you how you can invest a relatively short amount of time and still produce a realistic looking sketch with some very, very simple objects. But the key to achieving that is keeping in mind where your light source is and where your shadows will fall. So here in my case, as you will see, the light source will be coming from above and slightly to the left, which means that the shadows are going to be dropping downwards and to the right. So you can already see that I'm beginning to show that with the notepad, which has a little bit of a shadow underneath and to the right. And I'm doing the same thing with this pencil, just a regular graphite pencil. I want to make it look like somebody was writing or was about to write something on that notepad and has already made a few attempts and crumpled a few bits of paper. I started working on the paper, crumpled paper, a little bit, but I left it for now because I'm going to be going back to it. Right now I just want to refine some of these details and maybe work on this texture a little bit. So now you can see I'm using my black colored pencil to do this texture of the wood. I'm trying to imitate the texture of the wood to make it look like the notepad is lying on top of a desk. So I hope that it will look like wood once I'm finished. I'm not trying to be super precise or super detailed. Like I said, my goal is to make a pretty quick sketch which will ultimately look realistic. So now I'm drawing these lines. I had to erase it a little bit and fix them. I'm drawing these lines on the notepad and adding a little bit more shadow underneath to make it look a little bit more 3D, shading the sides as well. And now I think that the notepad looks like a solid 3D object. And now I'm moving on to the edges a little bit, cleaning them up with my pencil eraser. It's important to have a clean edge because that's where the object ends and the background begins, so we don't want to have that blurry. And you can see that I also added the shadows under the pieces of crumpled paper, and I'm trying to maintain the same direction of these shadows. Also, I added a few lines in the shadow which are a bit darker because the wood texture in the shadow is also going to be a little bit darker, so I need to create darker lines there. And now I'm using my pencil eraser again to maybe add a few details to this wood texture, and just erasing a few lines here and there to make the texture stand out a little bit more, like so. After that, once I'm happy with the way the background looks and with the way that my edges look, I'm going to be moving on to the crumpled paper, which is probably going to be the most complex part. But we'll see. So, like I said, if you want to make a drawing of anything look realistic, in order to sell it as a real object, you have to be consistent with your light source. So in my case, my light source is coming from the left, and as long as my shadows are pointing in the same direction, I will have something that looks that makes sense to the eye and that looks kind of real to the eye, even though I haven't really invested that much time and put that much effort into all the detail. Now I'm going to start to work on the crumpled paper. And what I did before I started drawing, actually I'm going to do this with a graphite pencil because it's going to be easier to erase in case I change my mind and want to fix something. So before I started working on the crumpled paper, I actually grabbed a piece of paper and crumpled it to resemble the shape that I created on my sketch. So now as I'm drawing, I'm looking at that crumpled piece of paper and I'm using it as my reference. So the key here, because a crumpled piece of paper is a fairly complex object and it can be a little bit difficult to draw, but we're not going to draw every single detail. This is not a photorealism challenge. We just want to create something that can be done very quickly but looks kind of real. And the key to doing that is, of course, using a range of value, contrast, and of course keeping in mind where the light source is. So if the light source is coming from the left and the above, because the crumpled paper has all of these different surfaces, different planes, we have to keep in mind whether the surface is facing the light source, in which case it's going to be either lighter or completely white, or if it's facing away from the light source, in which case it's going to be a lot darker. And the contrast between these lighter and darker areas, and the fact that we're keeping in mind where the light is coming from, is what should theoretically make this look like an actual crumpled piece of paper. So I'm looking at the paper I crumpled, and obviously I'm not going to be able to produce something that looks exactly like that, but I'm just using it to give me some ideas, some shapes, and already you can see that certain shapes are starting to come up, and that certain surfaces are starting to appear as though they're getting more light, and others are in the shadow, and it's starting to look a little bit like crumpled paper. My tortillon is a very useful tool here, obviously, but I am going to be going over some of these areas with an eraser as well, where I want to reinforce those highlights, those lighter areas. But occasionally I will also use a charcoal pencil to add some of these darker areas where I feel like less light will be coming through. Contrast is important, of course. So that's mostly the first piece of paper. Now I'm going to try to do the same thing with the second one. The second one has a slightly different shape, a little bit more round, like it's crumpled a little bit more. And of course I used a different reference for it. I crumpled my piece of paper a little bit differently, and it's sitting there on my desk in front of me. And I try to crush it into a shape that looks sort of similar to my sketch. And now I'm looking at it and trying to produce something that kind of looks like it, but it's not going to be exactly the same because, like I said, I am simplifying everything, and I don't want this process to take too long. It's not like I'm doing one of my realistic drawings, like when I'm doing a complex landscape or a portrait. This is an illustration, and therefore it needs to be a little bit simpler. So you can see here I also created some of the darker areas and lighter areas. And now moving on to the third one. This one has a little bit different crown-like shape, so again I took my piece of paper and straightened it a little bit and then crumpled it into a different shape to make it look like this one. And now I'm working on that because obviously I want all of these pieces of paper to have sort of random shapes and to be different, completely different from one another. That's what will make this scene a lot more convincing, a lot more realistic. Now I'm going to remove this tape and fix these edges or corners a little bit, and the drawing is almost done. That's sort of what I wanted to do. Just a few lines here and there to maybe refine the appearance of the background a little bit, but it's mostly done. I hope you liked this video. I hope you found it entertaining. Give me a like, subscribe, and bye for now.